Demon King wipes the floor with the hero and humanity's genius plan: shove 100 barrier mages into the demon realm to keep the nightmare contained. Spoiler, it didn't work. Generations of heroes have tried, failed, and died trying to finish the job. 30 years later, we find Blake. He's 39, living in a shack and just trying to enjoy his breakfast. The world is still chaotic, but for him, it's just another Tuesday in the life of a glorified wall patcher. But the wall is literally screaming for help. Monsters are clawing at the barrier, and it's buckling under the pressure. Blake is burning through his mana just to keep the cracks from turning into a full-blown apocalypse, praying some hotshot hero finally gets the memo and ends the Demon King once and for all. Suddenly, the castle goes nuclear. A hero finally lands the killing blow on the Demon King, and the resulting shockwave of blue energy is absolutely blinding. The source of the corruption just got vaporized in a massive, reality-shaking blast. Blake watches the sky clear. The miasma is evaporating, the monsters are dissolving into thin air, and for the first time in 3 decades, the pressure in his head actually stops. The job is done, the world is safe, and he can finally take a long overdue break. So how does the kingdom thank their savior? They send a bunch of goons to his hut a month later to kick him to the curb. These clowns actually have the nerve to call him a fraud and a leech, claiming his barrier was a total waste of taxpayer gold. Talk about a brutal severance package. 30 years of thankless labor flushed down the toilet. Dejected and officially unemployed, Blake decides he's done with the politics and sets his sights on heading back to his childhood village. Turns out the disrespect follows him home. He hits up the local adventurers guild to scrape together some coin, but the staff treats him like a nuisance, mocking him for even suggesting his decades of service were worth a decent paycheck. Blake stands there questioning if he just wasted his entire life for nothing. But with his pride in the dirt and his pockets empty, he has no choice. He swallows the bitter pill and begs the guild for any scraps of work they've got left. Just when you think it can't get worse, the local gatekeepers hit Blake with the ultimate insult: barrier magic is officially a dead-end career. No work, no respect, just pure gatekeeping. The tavern atmosphere goes from pathetic to paralyzed in a heartbeat. Royal knights storm the joint, demanding to know exactly where they can find our boy Blake. The room goes dead silent as Blake steps up. Turns out the big boss, Hero Alice, wants him in the capital. The patrons are left absolutely reeling, realizing the useless mage they were just mocking is being summoned by royalty. Blake does not stick around for the apologies. He hops into the royal carriage, leaving the small-town drama behind for the long ride to the capital. Inside the carriage, the silence gives him room to think. He's flashing back to that one time he actually saved Hero Alice's skin back near the demon realm, a reminder that he's not exactly a nobody. Reaching the capital is a trip, but the palace is another story. A knight escorts Blake through the gilded halls, eyes everywhere, clearly wondering why a guy like him is getting the red carpet treatment. Hero Alice is actually waiting, and she's surprisingly warm. She remembers the save, confirming she has not forgot his help when things were looking grim at the demon border. Blake plays it humble, but the mood shifts when Alice asks about his current gig. He has to own up to it, he's unemployed. Alice tries to offer him a spot in the Royal Magician Corps, but then Gunter, the 5th Division vice captain, crashes the party. He's got that classic "I'm better than everyone" energy, immediately trashing barrier mages as a total waste of space. The disrespect is palpable. Gunter is relentless, mocking Blake's age and his useless skill set, making sure everyone knows exactly how little he thinks of him. Alice is not having it. She throws down the gauntlet. If Blake can take Gunter in a fight, he's in. Gunter, smelling an easy win, accepts the challenge with a smug grin. It's go time. Gunter drops his title, vice captain of the 5th Division, like it's supposed to scare Blake. Our boy just squares up, ready to prove that underestimating a veteran is the biggest mistake Gunter's ever made. Gunter does not hold back, unleashing a massive, roaring torrent of fire that swallows the entire arena in a blinding explosion. His lackeys are already popping champagne in their heads, but the cheering dies fast. Gunter's grin vanishes. Blake is still standing there, completely unbothered. Blake just brushes off his clothes, casually asking if the exam has even started yet. Gunter looks like he's seen a ghost, his ego bruising as he decides to stop playing nice. He cranks the heat, screaming at the top of his lungs for Blake to burn to ashes. The fire intensifies, turning the air into a furnace. The crowd is losing their minds at the sheer heat, but Blake, he's bored. He notes the magic feels weak. Is this guy actually holding back, or is he just this pathetic? The smoke clears and there's Blake again. Gunter is spiraling, genuinely unable to process how a useless barrier mage is still breathing. Gunter resorts to the classic bully tactic, mocking the barrier specialty. Blake just sighs, tells him to try harder, and signals for another round. Gunter fires off another blast, but Blake does not just block it, he shifts his blue barrier like a mirror. The recoil hits Gunter like a freight train, sending him flying. Gunter pulls himself up, screaming for an explanation on how a barrier mage just counter-attacked. Blake keeps it simple, he just moved the barrier. The look on Gunter's face is priceless. Humiliated and desperate, Gunter's pride takes a nosedive. He decides the only way to save face now is to stop playing by the rules and just kill the guy. The subordinates are starting to look genuinely worried, but Blake does not even break his stance. He's just waiting, calm as a cucumber. Gunter pours everything into one final, desperate charge. Blake tilts his head, wondering aloud if he was just hit by a stray pebble. Gunter's rage hits a breaking point. A woman watches from the sidelines, dropping a cold warning this is his last shot. Gunter is sweating now, terrified of failing Alice and ready to dump every ounce of power he has left. A dark-robed mage starts chanting, but the blonde guy, Gunter, decides he's done playing nice. He unleashes a massive, scorching firestorm, screaming that he's going to end this. People are scrambling, yelling that a standard barrier won't hold back that kind of heat. Our observer woman just smirks, betting that while normal barriers would turn to ash, Blake might be the exception, and she's right. Blake stands his ground, his barrier standing firm as he effortlessly deflects the wall of flames. Gunter's face is a masterclass in total disbelief. He pours everything into that blast, only for his mana to hit zero and his body to hit the floor. The test is over and the prodigy just got schooled. The woman officially calls it, Blake is in. She drops a bombshell. He's been holding down the demon world's barriers solo for 30 years. When Gunter wheezes about where the other mages were, the truth is grim, they're all dead or they just gave up and ran. Suddenly it clicks for Blake why his mana drain felt so heavy lately. Gunter is still struggling to process the math. How could one guy hold a barrier that massive for decades? The woman just confirms the reality. Blake is simply built different. The mood shifts instantly as the captain of the first unit makes his grand entrance. Gunter recognizes him immediately, and you can practically see the color drain from his face. The captain is not here for pleasantries. He corners Gunter, demanding to know what's going on. The woman explains she recommended Blake, and Gunter's ego turned this into a pathetic little grudge match. The captain's verdict, Gunter lost, plain and simple. Gunter tries to save face, stammering that he was holding back, but the captain is not buying that garbage. In this core, results are the only thing that matters. He turns to Blake and drops the news he's officially a royal magician. Blake is reeling, questioning if he's even qualified for this, while the woman is practically beaming. She tries to pivot to a celebratory meal, but the captain is not having any of it. He literally drags her away to get back to business. Before he leaves, the captain stops to give Blake a cold, cryptic warning: stay away from the hero if he knows what's good for him. Blake just watches them go, while Gunter is left in the dirt, absolutely fuming with resentment. A few days later, the dust has settled. Blake shows up at the Royal Magician Corps dorm, clutching his new assignment papers and ready for whatever comes next. Walking through the dorms like a fish out of water, Blake catches whispers from the trainees. They aren't exactly subtle, mocking his scruffy, worn-out look. He ignores the chatter, pushes open the door to room 206 and steps inside. His roommate Sven looks like he's seen a ghost. When Blake casually mentions he's a recommendation from the hero and actually took down Vice Captain Gunter, Sven loses it. He's convinced he's been saddled with a delusional old man who's one step away from a mental breakdown. Sven is still vibrating with anxiety, but he decides to be useful. He offers to clean up Blake's wild hair, and honestly, it's a necessary upgrade. Blake agrees, and with his new look, they finally head out to meet the rest of the squad. Enter Therese and Clara. They take one look at their new teammate, and the skepticism is palpable. An older guy with no pedigree joining their ranks. They're clearly wondering if there's been some kind of administrative error. Assembly time, and the rumors are running wild. Everyone's whispering about the guy who supposedly flattened the vice captain, while a nameless hostile recruit stares daggers at Blake from across the room. The tension is thick enough to cut with a knife. The brass drops the bomb, a 2-week survival exercise in the Mecha Forest. The mere mention of the place has the recruits panicking, but Blake keeps his cool, trying to ground his team before they spiral into total chaos. Dragon carriages are waiting, but the vibe is anything but celebratory. That hostile recruit makes a direct threat, and the situation takes a sharp turn for the worse when they realize they've been dropped in the middle of nowhere near the actual forest. The team is falling apart, bickering over who's in charge and how screwed they are. Blake finally steps up, pulls out the map, and shuts the noise down. They're in the Mecha Forest, and if they want to survive, they need to move fast. The crew is trekking through hell and back, lugging gear like pack mules. Our orange-haired guy is already gasping for air, side-eyeing the silver-haired recruit who is not even breaking a sweat. After a brutal hike, they finally hit the threshold of the Mecha Forest. Welcome to the jungle where the air itself is toxic. The orange-haired guy plays the expert, bragging that their magic keeps the miasma from melting their lungs. They're hunting a level 2 Komodo dragon, a total cakewalk he claims, while schooling the silver-haired guy on the 10-level monster hierarchy. Talk is cheap, but these goblins are not. An ambush hits them out of nowhere, turning a boring hike into a frantic scramble for survival. Mr. Orange Hair tries to be the hero, charging in with fire magic like he's the main character. Big mistake. He gets clipped, nearly losing a limb for his ego. Thankfully, his teammate steps in, blasting the creeps and patching him up before he bleeds out. The dust settles and the bickering starts. It's the classic do not be a moron lecture, and honestly, watching the orange-haired guy try to defend his reckless play is just painful. The forest is not done with them yet. Giant dragonflies buzz by, and a carnivorous plant tries to turn our orange-haired friend into a snack. Total chaos erupts and the silver-haired guy hits the deck. Calm down because the silver-haired guy is back on his feet. He pulses his magic, revealing a hidden path through the madness. He points them toward the sound of water and they follow his lead. Night falls and while the rest are snoring, the silver-haired guy is on watch. A massive red-eyed beast stalks out of the shadows, ready to feast, but it slams face first into a magical barrier, getting sent flying. Power move, zero effort. The orange-haired guy wakes up suspicious, but our silver-haired lead plays it cool. They swap shifts, and as the night drags on, the orange-haired guy starts realizing this easy mission is anything but. Whispers circulate about the vice captain and the old man's true motives, but back at the palace, some suit is practically salivating. He's handpicked this death trap of a forest, betting his entire reputation that the group won't make it out alive. The forest decides to stop playing nice. A level 4 salamander crashes the party, and suddenly the air is thick with the smell of scorched earth and pure, unadulterated panic. Reality hits them like a truck. They're staring down a monster that's clearly out of their league, and the look in their eyes says it all. They're already counting their own tombstones. A torrent of flames erupts, turning the clearing into an oven, but the fire hits a wall. Literally. A shimmering barrier flares up and the group realizes the old man isn't just along for the ride, he's the only reason they are not charcoal. The heat is still rising, but the old man is not backing down. He tells the group to sit tight, stepping forward to face the beast solo. They're screaming that he's just a decoy, but he's already committed to the dance. As the barrier holds, the group scrambles to plot their exit, convinced the old man is walking into a meat grinder. They're looking for a way out, still totally unable to wrap their heads around the fact that he's actually planning to win. One blink and it's over. The salamander is down, and the group is left standing there, jaws on the floor, trying to process the absolute beatdown they just witnessed. It's a masterclass in overkill. The old man is not just defending, he's weaponizing those barriers, using them as platforms and crushing weights to dismantle the beast piece by piece until there is nothing left but silence. He brushes off the carnage like he just swatted a fly, casually mentioning he picked up the trick in the demon realm. The group is left absolutely floored, wondering what other nightmares he's hiding in his repertoire. Our guy in the dark robe is living in a total fantasy world, praying that the old man finally kicked the bucket in that monster-infested hellhole. But the universe has a sick sense of humor. Team F, including our orange-haired hero, walks back and looking suspiciously alive. The robe guy's face, priceless. He's trying to keep it together, but our protagonist drops the bomb. They've got a salamander S-Fang. The proof is right there, the monster is dead and the robe guy's plan is officially in the dumpster. The team chats about their win, giving the old man his flowers for the guidance. Our hero keeps it humble, preaching teamwork, while the robe guy watches from the sidelines, his resentment practically vibrating off him. Something feels off about that mission's difficulty, and our hero knows it. Meanwhile, the robe guy is clenching his fist, vowing that the barrier mage isn't getting away with this. Days later, a new training competition kicks off. Our hero's crew heads to a quiet corner, but the robe guy is tailing them like a creep with a vendetta. Then comes Vice Captain Gunther, acting like he owns the place. He orders our hero to stand down and watch, turning his sights on the other 3 team members like their target practice. It's not training, it's a beatdown. Gunther blasts the team with magic, sending one of them crashing to the ground while he mocks their pathetic defense. Our hero watches in alarm as Gunther starts channeling a massive fire spell. This isn't instruction, it's an attempt to break them through pure, unadulterated force. With a flick of his wrist, Gunther unleashes a colossal beam of fire, engulfing the area in a massive, blinding explosion. The guy has the nerve to call it a slipped hand because of an insult. He's standing there, acting like a victim while waiting for the smoke to clear so he can see the carnage. The smoke clears and there they are, totally unscathed behind a glowing blue barrier. Gunther is absolutely losing his mind, and our hero realizes the old man was one step ahead the whole time. The rest of the trainees are not blind. They're watching this training session and realizing it's not instruction, it's just a straight-up power trip. Gunther isn't a mentor, he's a bully with a badge. Blake is not backing down though. He rallies the team, sharpening their focus. They know the game is rigged, but they're determined to push through the hostility and show they can work as a unit, regardless of the guy trying to sabotage them. Gunther launches another magical barrage, but the team is ready. They snap into a perfect formation, dropping a defensive barrier that tanks the hit. Before the vice captain can even blink, they pivot and land a clean counter strike. The smug look on his face gone. Gunther is absolutely unhinged now, fuming that a bunch of trainees dared to touch him. He's about to lose it, but the air suddenly shifts. An authority figure steps onto the field, cutting his tantrum dead in its tracks. The hammer drops. The newcomer calls out Gunther for exactly what he is, a petty, grudge-holding coward using his position to harass Blake. With no room for excuses, Gunther is officially stripped of his duties. He's done. In the quiet of a private room, the tension finally bleeds out. The team breathes a massive sigh of relief. The nightmare is over. Blake takes a second to apologize to his squad, owning the fact that this whole mess started because of him. Just as the dust settles, a messenger appears with a new objective. Blake is being summoned to the Hendria Kingdom Magic Research Institute. It's time to meet Lady Etta, the legendary Witch of Wisdom. Blake walks in and greets Etta like an old drinking buddy. The attendant in the room practically faints from the sheer audacity. Apparently, treating a genius magician like a normal person is a crime against etiquette. Etta cuts through the awkwardness with a cold, hard fact: she needs them. The demon realm is crawling with miasma that kills anyone else, but the hero's party is uniquely resistant. She's not asking for a favor, she's recruiting them for a suicide mission. Etta starts grilling our boy on his barrier tech, specifically if he can actually snatch up high-level monsters. Everyone else looks like they're waiting for him to trip, but Blake just doubles down. No sweat, no hesitation, he says he can do it. Etta isn't one for debate, she shuts down the peanut gallery before they can even whine. While the rest of the crew stands there looking like they've just witnessed a train wreck, Blake stays cool as a cucumber. Damage control time. The group offers a sheepish apology while Blake spins this suicide mission as training for the Magician Corps. The squad is low-key terrified he's got some weird hold over the legendary witch, and they're already plotting to keep her safe. Destination set: the abandoned Bourbon mine. The crew hit the road on some prehistoric-looking mounts, but the real mystery is not the destination, it's why Blake and Etta act like they've been besties for years. Etta finally drops a crumb of gratitude for that time Blake bylaid her and her people out in the Forest of Death. As they chat, the rest of the team watches, probably trying to figure out just how deep this rabbit hole goes. As they pass through town, the locals are cheering like it's a parade. Between the cheers, Blake drops a casual bombshell: he's been holding up barriers solo since he was 9. Talk about a rough childhood. They hit the Bourbon mine and the air is thick with lethal miasma. Etta looks to our guy, asking if he can pull off a moving barrier to shield them. Blake does not even blink, it is a go. Blake snaps his fingers and a barrier hums to life, cutting through the toxic haze like it's nothing. The team is absolutely floored as he marches them into the dark. It's quiet, too quiet, no monsters yet, but he can feel a massive miasma pool pulsing deep inside. Now they're playing detective with the miasma. Is it a monster, a cursed relic, or just nature being a jerk? The stakes are sky high. Miasma breeds monsters, and if it gets too concentrated, it's basically a factory for the next Demon King. Etta lays it out: kill the source and the spawn usually fizzle out. But it is not a total clean sweep, so they need to figure out exactly how this miasma factory is churning out nightmares. Talk about a mood killer. Etta takes a tumble and her guy tries to play the hero by offering a piggyback ride. Cue the team's other mage, who immediately shuts that down. Apparently our genius Witch of Wisdom is not a toddler. Etta just dusts herself off and keeps moving. The air gets heavy and the miasma hits peak toxicity. Out of the gloom steps a level 5 Minotaur, looking like it has not had a good day in a century. No time for pleasantries. The beast charges, turning the cavern into a demolition zone with debris flying everywhere. Etta knows when she's outclassed by the situation. Standard magic will not cut it for a capture, so she calls in the heavy hitter. The team defers to the Witch of Wisdom's lead. When the smartest person in the room says, "Get the barrier, guy," you get the barrier, guy. The Minotaur lunges, but Blake is already there. He slams a massive barrier into existence, slamming the beast into a containment cage before it can even blink. Blake holds the line and Etta drops the science: this is not just a wall, it's a purifier. As the barrier hums, the miasma gets scrubbed away and the Minotaur starts looking a whole lot less like a threat and a lot more like a prisoner. The team is genuinely stunned. Even Etta admits she could not pull off that kind of precision. With the monster bagged and tagged, they decide to call it a day and get the hell out of there. They thank Blake for keeping them in one piece, but as Etta walks off, Blake's eyes linger on her. Something about the whole situation is not sitting right with him. Back at the lab, Etta's all smiles, praising the hall. She explains that she can keep the barrier running long-term if she's close by, but warns that without a constant, high-level magic feed, any normal barrier would have collapsed instantly. Someone floats the idea of using Etta's magic to snag more samples. Then, our guy pulls a rabbit out of a hat, a custom magic circle he whipped up to stabilize the demon realm's barrier. Etta's jaw hits the floor. She's never seen anything like it and demands to know if he's the mastermind behind the tech. He shrugs it off like it's nothing, but here's the kicker: he built this thing 30 years ago when he was just 9. Back then, the barrier mages were drowning, so he engineered a way to feed the system external power. It was supposed to be a team effort, but he ended up being the only one left holding the bag. The room goes dead silent. The team is absolutely reeling, but he just brushes off the praise and gets to work. With a flick of his wrist, a glowing blue field snaps into existence, locking that monster inside like it's sitting in a high-tech cage. He promises the barrier will hold for hours and offers to hover nearby just in case. The team gets back to the grind, analyzing the miasma and the beast, while Etta retreats to her desk, completely locked into her own world. As the day wraps up, the woman on the team announces she's clocking out. With everyone else long gone, our guy tells Etta he's prepped a room for her right here in the facility. All she needs to do is pop in for the occasional magic top-up. He offers to stick around to help, but Etta shuts him down. She doesn't need a babysitter. He's persistent though, claiming he's too worried about the barrier to leave. She basically tells him to suit himself, clearly unbothered by his hovering. A week of silence passes. The guy finally decides to step out for a breather, leaving Etta behind to grind away in the lab all by her lonesome. He catches the woman in the hall and asks why everyone else bails so early, leaving Etta to rot in the lab. She basically tells him to mind his own business. Etta's a genius, she explains, the rest of them would just be dead weight. She tells him to go home, but he's clearly not taking the hint. The woman stalks off, leaving him to head back to the lab. He finds the place quiet and discovers Etta fast asleep at her desk. It's a rare moment of peace, so he quietly drapes a cloak over her shoulders. A few days later, the team is grabbing lunch, but Etta is still glued to her station. He tries to drag her away for a break, but she's not having it. She's not working because she has to, she's working because she wants to. Etta brushes him off, insisting he stop hovering and go take a break for himself. Meanwhile, the lunch crew is busy fanboying over Etta's research, practically worshipping how she hunts monsters solo, though they're still salty some barrier mage ruined her flow. One guy finally snaps, calling them out for treating a 13-year-old like she's a seasoned veteran, which naturally starts a massive heated shouting match. He's not just being a contrarian though, he's thinking about how Etta's actually just a kid who's had to grow up way too fast, despite her brilliant mind and genuine heart. He pushes the group, asking if any of them have actually bothered to see her as a person, and the woman in the group looks like she's about to crumble under the guilt. Then the mood hits rock bottom when Etta strolls right past them. The silence is deafening as she walks away, leaving him to watch her with a look of pure concern. Later that night, she shows up at his room. He's ready, handing her a warm drink and a cloak to stave off the chill in a rare, quiet moment of genuine connection. They finally get real about her past, with Etta opening up on how being labeled a genius basically nuked her chance at having any normal human relationships. She talks about her village, where her ordinary parents realized she was a magical freak of nature and immediately shoved her into a life of non-stop, intensive training. By 6, she was already being groomed for combat and research, forced to act like an adult while her actual childhood was being burned to the ground. Etta's spiraling, trapped in the suffocating weight of being a genius everyone expects to be perfect. Blake cuts through the tension, hitting her with a blunt question: is she actually afraid of the monsters? He brings up those brutal past encounters, like that nightmare with the Minotaur, and points out how terrified she looked. Etta does not even try to hide it. She admits the only reason she survived those frontline brawls was because she had people shielding her from the back. Blake drops the tough guy act, admitting he's scared stiff too, but he just buries it to stay alive. Etta, though, feels like she's on a razor's edge. She's convinced that if she stops being the genius and shows any weakness, she'll be tossed aside like trash. The trauma hits hard, a flashback of cold, judgmental faces treating her like a tool that's lost its value. She's spiraling, begging not to be abandoned, forcing herself to play the adult, until Blake finally breaks the cycle with a gentle, grounding pat on the head. He makes it crystal clear he's not going anywhere. He acknowledges the absolute hell she's been through and finally gives her the one thing she's been denied her whole life, the validation that she's done enough. The dam breaks, Etta's sobbing, just wanting the stuff normal kids get: sweets, friends, a family that does not view her as a weapon. She loves her research, but she's sick of the blood and the monsters, and she's finally asking why she is not allowed to lean on someone else. Blake hits her with the truth: being a kid means you're allowed to be weak. He promises to be the wall she can lean on whenever things get too heavy, and for the first time the tension leaves her shoulders. They sit there, hands held, sharing a quiet, heavy moment of peace. It's a mirror to the past, but this time there is actual connection instead of just survival. A quick, jagged flash of the reality they're trying to escape, Blake desperately holding the line against monsters while Etta lies helpless in the dirt. Back in the quiet of the room, Blake watches over her as she drifts off. When she wakes up, she's still clinging to him, terrified of being alone again. He holds her tight, promising her that he is not going anywhere. A few days later, the capital's market is absolutely buzzing. Blake is waiting in the thick of it, and here comes Etta, looking like she actually stepped out of a normal life for once, sun hat, white dress, and looking ready to actually breathe. She's practically vibrating with excitement. It turns out she has not stepped foot out of the shadows since arriving in the capital, so everything here is brand new. Blake just grins and tells her to soak it in. First times are the only ones that really stick. We're talking classic market vibes. They hit up a food stall, grab some lollipops, and just wander through the crowd while kids run around nearby. It's almost weirdly peaceful seeing them act like actual people instead of just survival machines. The sun starts dipping low, painting the market in those long, golden shadows. They're still just walking, looking genuinely content. No monsters, no trauma, just two people enjoying a sunset. They hit a jewelry stall and Blake pulls the classic "you see anything you like" move, Etta doing that hesitant thing, probably still not used to the idea that she's allowed to want nice things. Blake is not having any of her "I will pay for it" nonsense. He grabs a necklace, drops the coin, and helps her put it on. The look on her face, pure, unfiltered delight. Sometimes the simple stuff hits harder than a boss fight. The shopkeeper chimes in, calling Blake a great father and gushing over them. A bit awkward, but they just share a laugh and head off into the sunset. Honestly, they've earned the breather. Fast forward a week and we're back in the grind. Edda's standing in front of a room full of mages, owning her failure to stop the miasma like a pro. She's pivoting to barrier research and makes it clear she needs Blake on board for this. Then the absolute shocker. The mages, who were basically useless before, suddenly drop into a synchronized bow. They're actually admitting they were just a bunch of jealous, lazy hacks who dumped all their problems on her. Talk about a reality check. Ed and Blake take the high road, accepting the apology and telling them to get to work. Turns out it was Blake's blunt, no-nonsense scolding that finally kicked their brains into gear. They're finally ready to stop being dead weight and start pulling their own. Suddenly, Blake is the man of the hour. A crowd of students and a blue-haired girl are practically swooning over his barrier techniques. After a quick promise to keep them posted and a quiet blink and you'll miss it moment with his admirer, he heads out to a chorus of cheers. Home sweet home, and the welcoming committee is already waiting. 3 students are hovering, clearly stressed that Blake's late. They're not buying his stories about monster hunting for a second, and the conversation quickly pivots to just how exclusive and stuck up the Magic Research Institute really is. Time to put up or shut up. The group drags Blake out to the training grounds, desperate to see if he's actually the real deal. They start throwing spells around, but let's just say their magical prowess is looking more like a spectacular display of nothing happening. Watching them struggle is painful, but it gets worse. A pack of rival students strolls in to mock them as dropouts, sparking a classic shouting match. They're being laughed at, but honestly. The fire in their eyes is actually starting to burn for real. One of the students finally snaps, but not at the rivals. He drops to his knees in front of Blake, begging for a shot at real training. It turns out this is not just about grades, he's got a family to support and he's completely desperate for a win. Blake does not just hand out favors, so he grills the kid on why he's pushing so hard. Hearing the raw, ugly truth about the kid's situation hits home. Blake finally relents, agreeing to teach him some actual combat techniques. The kid's reaction, pure, unadulterated joy. The other 2 show up, demanding to be part of the masterclass. Turns out Blake was already ahead of them, he'd planned on it all along. Now they're watching his every move like hawks, obsessed with cracking the code to his ridiculous strength. Eyes peeled, that's the golden rule here. But the mecha forest is not exactly a classroom, it's a meat grinder. Red lizards swarm the group and our guys fire magic, it's just making them multiply. Panic is setting in fast, and honestly, who can blame them? Enter the silver-haired legend. He does not break a sweat, just drops a massive wave of blue magic that wipes the board clean. The group is left absolutely speechless. How is this guy pulling off this level of destruction while simultaneously keeping a barrier locked down in the demon realm? It's not even fair. 30 years ago, he was just a 9-year-old kid dumped into the demon realm like trash. Abandoned with nothing but a mission: maintain the barriers or die. It was not a hero's journey, it was a slow, brutal sentence in a hellscape meant to swallow him whole. Survival was not a choice, it was a grind. No food, no sleep, just constant barrier maintenance. He was a kid playing God to stay alive, eventually hacking the system by inventing an automated magic circle. He even managed to pass the secret along to other mages through a passing merchant. Talk about a survivalist genius. Foraging for a bite to eat turned into a life or death sprint. Chased by monsters, he had to stop playing defense and start weaponizing his environment. He learned to scrub the toxic miasma and turn his barriers into a fortress, forcing the forest itself to stop trying to kill him. Year after year, he did not just survive, he leveled up. He turned the demon realm into his own personal laboratory, researching and refining his barriers until he could trap monsters like common pests. He did not just endure the nightmare, he mastered it. By 12, Blake is not just surviving, he's playing with his food. He's turning the forest's deadliest monsters into literal sitting ducks, locking them in place with high-precision barriers just to scavenge in peace. It's a total power flex. Why run when you can just cage the nightmare? Fast forward to 15 and the kid's evolved. He stopped treating magic like a shield and started using it like a weapon. He's moving with his barriers, turning every step into an offensive strike. It's no longer about hiding, it's about controlling the entire battlefield. Dinner time in the demon realm is a masterclass in chemistry. Blake scrubbing the toxic miasma out of monster meat like a pro, all while obsessively tweaking his magic. Hardness, viscosity, shape, he's treating his barrier mana like a liquid asset he can mold at will. Class is in session. Blake's showing off his combat flow to 3 wide-eyed recruits, weaving barriers through the trees like he's conducting a symphony of violence. He's teaching them that if you want to stay alive, you don't just block, you dominate the space. The recruits are absolutely floored, staring at him like he's a living legend. Blake naturally hits them with the classic just train harder speech, completely missing the fact that he's basically a superhuman freak of nature. Their frustration is palpable, but hey, he's just too dense to notice he's playing a different game. Meanwhile, in the world of suits and red tape, Lancelot is the golden boy. The bureaucrats are practically tripping over themselves to praise his humility and skill. He's the perfect captain on paper, modest, capable, and exactly what the establishment wants to parade around. But behind the polished armor, Lancelot is feeling the rot. He's grinding through monster fights, but he knows his magic has hit a hard ceiling. No drive, no real goals, just a guy going through the motions of being a hero while feeling completely stuck in place. Back at the desk, reality calls. Reports of monster attacks on nearby villages hit his inbox, and Lancelot sees the silver lining. It's the perfect excuse to drag his green recruits out for some field training. It's bureaucratic efficiency at its finest, turning a crisis into a syllabus. The recruits are sweating bullets. It's their first real field op, and the nerves are practically vibrating off them. One guy's trying to play the hero, keeping everyone's pulse from hitting the ceiling. Naturally, the cool kids from other squads are already chirping. They're mocking the team for shaking in their boots, acting like they've never been scared in their lives. It's classic petty academy posturing. Then the red-haired leader steps up. No fluff, just business, a 2-week survival trek to clear out level 3 pests. He orders them into squads of 4, and just like that, the clock starts ticking on their misery. The desert is a nightmare. It's a literal slog through sand and heat with zero downtime. Every step is an argument with their own legs, and the no-break policy is turning this training into a slow-motion breakdown. Just when they think they're at their limit, the officer in charge drops the hammer, not with more running, but with the weirdest demand yet. He's making them play masseur for the squad leaders. Nothing says elite training like a shoulder rub in the middle of a wasteland. 7 days in and they're basically zombies. Sleep is a distant memory and their bodies are just screaming at this point. It's not even about the monsters anymore, it's about who can stay standing the longest. The red-haired trainee finally corners the squad leader, asking how he's still functional. The guy just shrugs it off, mentioning he's walked this road before and that most of the other weak links have already tapped out. Cue the drama. 2 senior trainees waltz over, looking for a target. They start running their mouths, questioning the squad leader's credentials and acting like they're the kings of the sandbox. The red-haired leader shuts that down fast. The seniors back off, but the red-haired guy is left with a nagging feeling. He's watching the squad leader closely, wondering if there's a whole lot more hidden behind that dead-eyed exhaustion. 2 weeks of torture later, they finally hit the village. The chief is there, throwing a classic save us from the monsters sob story. It looks like a standard rescue mission on the surface. But the red-haired leader isn't buying the act. He pulls the squad heads aside, pointing out the obvious. The place is charred, the young women are missing, and the chief's story has more holes than a screen door. Something is definitely rotten here. Captain Lancelot is not taking any chances. He tells the squad to starve and dehydrate rather than risk a poisoned meal, betting everything on a nighttime ambush. The squad is fully on board, ready to follow his lead into the dark. Just as the plan solidifies, a rookie pipes up with an opinion. The rest of the squad is ready to tear his head off for the interruption, but Lancelot shuts them down, actually curious enough to let the kid talk. The kid does not hold back, calling the current strategy a death sentence for the hostages. He pitches an offensive play, and when the veterans demand to know how he'll track an invisible enemy, he drops the detection barrier technique on them. To prove he is not just flapping his gums, the rookie pinpoints his squad mates' movements behind him with creepy precision. Lancelot, clearly sold, hands the rookie's team the mission: find the lair and pull those hostages out. Night falls and the group moves out. The veterans are still buzzing about the squad leader's gamble, while the rookies are fanboying over Lancelot's raw power and the sheer utility of that barrier trick. They reach their destination, settling into the building for what they hope is a quiet night. Lancelot hits the rack, finally catching some well-deserved shut-eye. The silence does not last. Lizardmen creep in for a midnight kill, but Lancelot is not as asleep as they thought. He wakes up and instantly turns their weapons into scrap metal with a flick of magical force. These level 3 lizardmen are basically bugs to him. He wipes them off the map with a blast of magic, but the noise is a dinner bell for the heavy hitters. A squad of level 4 orcs is already closing in. An orc lunges at the disoriented squad, but Lancelot is already there. He unleashes a fire spell that turns the immediate area into a furnace, incinerating the orc and clearing the room in one brutal move. Lancelot demands to know where the rest of the pack is hiding. His squad, still shaking from the sudden violence, thanks him for the save and signals that the real problem is only just beginning. The air gets heavy. A level 6 orc lord stomps onto the scene and you can practically hear the mages' knees knocking together. They're terrified, but they've got one card to play: Captain Lancelot. Lancelot doesn't waste time with pleasantries. He drops a magical nuke that turns the surroundings into a crater, vaporizing the lesser orcs instantly. It's a total wipe. Landing amidst the wreckage, Lancelot narrows his eyes. This orc lord isn't just a mindless brute, it's moving with tactical precision. Someone is pulling the strings and they're good at it. Meanwhile, a support team hits the jackpot in a nearby cave. They find the captives, get them calmed down, and one of the mages peels off to get back to the main event. Just as the dust settles, a real nightmare walks up: Barbarossa. Lancelot checks his internal reserves and realizes he's running on fumes. He has to play this perfectly. One wrong move and he's toast. Barbarossa swings that massive axe like it's made of paper, and the shockwave nearly tears the ground apart. Lancelot is barely dodging, skating on the edge of a total collapse. Out of nowhere, a mage teammate slides in, slapping up a barrier to catch the axe mid-swing. They're already shouting about healing Lancelot's wounds, which frankly he could use. This is not your average bandage-up job. The mage is using a high-tier barrier that purifies and detects while it knits bone and muscle back together. Fancy, right? Barbarossa is losing his mind at the chatter, charging back in. Lancelot and the healer lock eyes. The plan is simple. The mage creates the window and Lancelot delivers the final, high-level blast. Lancelot's skeptical of the setup, but he does not have much choice. The mage is already channeling raw energy into his fists and feet, ready to turn his defense into a very painful offense. Silverhair is not playing around. He snaps a blue magic circle into existence, channeling enough pressure to slam that purple-eyed beast right into the dirt. It's a clean, brutal opening. The crowd is stunned, but the beast, it's just getting started. It claws its way back up, pure rage in its eyes, only for our guy to keep the heat coming, refusing to give it a single inch of breathing room. Now the signal goes out. Red Hair steps up, dropping a high-level nuke of a spell. The impact is massive, a blinding explosion that tears through the beast's defenses, turning the tide in one glorious, fiery mess. The monster is down for the count. The team is cheering, but look at Red Hair, he's absolutely drained. Silver Hair is right there to catch him, holding him up before he hits the deck. Credit where it's due, Silver Hair is giving props to Red Hair's magic, while the rest of the squad is busy singing the captain's praises. It's a classic victory lap, but the vibes are shifting. Not everyone is happy, though. A few grumblers start cornering Silver Hair, accusing him of hogging the spotlight. He does not even blink, just calmly shuts them down with a lecture on what teamwork actually means. Things get heated when one of them grabs his collar, but Silver Hair does not flinch. He stops that hand cold, laying down the law on mutual support. The silence that follows, absolutely deafening. With the hostages back in the village and the chief bowing an apology, the dust finally settles. Barbarossa, or whatever that thing was, is gone, but nobody seems to know exactly what it was in the first place. The long trek home is brutal and the team is wiped. Once they are back, Silver Hair pulls Red Hair aside. He needs a word and it does not look like it is about the mission. They end up at a tavern, grabbing a bite to eat. It's quiet, almost awkward. They drop the guard for a second, admitting that neither of them has ever actually invited someone out for a meal like this before. Real human moment finally. The drinks keep flowing as the wall between them finally crumbles. No more titles, no more posturing, just Blake and his companion clinking glasses to two deeply flawed people trying to make it in a world that rarely cuts them any slack. Walking off the buzz, Blake finds himself in a reflective mood, silently tipping his hat to hero Alice for everything she's done. His peace of mind hits a wall, though, when a hooded figure darts through the crowd like they're being hunted. A blind corner, a heavy collision, and suddenly Blake is playing bodyguard. He barely has time to apologize before he's snagging the stranger's arm and hauling her into the shadows just as the guards thunder past, completely oblivious. The boots fade into the distance, leaving them alone in the damp silence of the alley. The stranger finally catches her breath, offering a sincere thanks to the guy who just saved her from a very awkward interrogation. The hood drops and Blake's jaw practically hits the floor. It's Alice, but not the shiny, untouchable hero from the posters. She's burnt out, drowning in a mountain of fan mail and soul-crushing public appearances that make saving the world look like a vacation. Seeing the legendary hero this exhausted, it's enough to make anyone drop the hero worship. Blake offers her a way out, a simple, quiet break from the madness. Her eyes light up, she's not just accepting, she's relieved. They ditch the capital for a view that actually lets you breathe. Alice is not just here to talk, though. She pulls out 2 lunchboxes, looking like she's been waiting all day for someone to finally share a meal with, no cameras or expectations attached. Blake tucks into the sandwich, genuinely impressed, and tosses her a compliment. Alice is clearly not used to being treated like a normal person, feeling a bit self-conscious about her domestic side, but Blake shuts that down immediately. It's not weird, it's just human. She starts opening up, talking about a life before the fame. She was just a village girl until the goddess Altria dropped a revelation on her, turning her entire world upside down. The path to becoming a hero was not all glory. It was a brutal, soul-crushing grind of training designed to prepare her for the Demon King. Turns out she had a knack for the blade, and eventually she got the job done. With the Demon King out of the picture and the world actually quiet for once, Alice admits she's finally feeling the weight of that peace. It's a strange, heavy kind of relief. Blake drops his own bomb. He's a barrier mage and he's been holding down the fort for 30 years. It's not just a job to him, he's convinced his entire existence has been leading up to this moment, the purpose of protecting Alice. He doubles down on it, insisting her status as a hero is irrelevant to him. To Blake, she's just a kind, hardworking girl who deserves a break. Alice is visibly floored, the frustration she's been carrying around finally starting to melt away as she thanks him for the perspective. They head back into the bustle of the town and go their separate ways, with a silent understanding that this definitely is not the last time they'll be grabbing lunch. Blake's transition back to reality is quick. He catches movement in a nearby alleyway, some hooded creep muttering threats to himself like he's practicing for a villain monologue. The guy's having a total meltdown. His superior shows up just to drop the hammer. He's being demoted and shipped off to the Mabel region for being a corrupt, power-tripping disaster. He's absolutely losing his mind, screaming that he won't accept it, but his boss could not care less. He just walks away, leaving this pathetic loser to throw a tantrum in the dirt. This guy is absolutely losing it. He's throwing a full-blown tantrum in the middle of the hall, letting off magical shockwaves just because he can't handle the demotion. Talk about a massive overreaction. An official catches him at the gate, completely unfazed by the noble act. He shuts down the whining, tells him his status means nothing here, and makes it clear he's lucky to even walk away with his life. Now he's sitting in the dirt, wallowing in his own misery while everyone just walks past. He's muttering to himself, totally obsessed with the lady hero like he's the main character of a tragedy nobody asked for. It's all about the past for this loser. He wanted to be her captain, but then some silver-haired guy waltzed in and stole the spotlight. That's the real source of the salt, is not it? He's tearing through the city, eyes peeled, until he sees them. The lady hero laughing with that same silver-haired guy. It's like watching his brain snap in real time as the jealousy turns into something truly ugly. He's just standing there, spiraling. He's actually sitting in the shadows, daydreaming about a reality where he's the one marrying her. The delusion is reaching legendary levels of cringe. The internal monologue just took a hard left into psychopath territory. He's done with the games, he's officially decided that killing the silver-haired guy is the only way to get what he wants. Meanwhile, back in the real world, the trainees are lining up. Their red-haired leader is dropping the news. They've got the biggest job yet, guarding the VIPs for the Demon King subjugation ceremony. The assignments start rolling out and the tension is palpable. The trainees are whispering, wondering who gets the glory, until one announcement hits and leaves a recruit completely blindsided. The room goes dead silent. All eyes are glued to the group in the black uniforms, and honestly you can practically smell their panic. They're whispering, sweating, and trying to figure out why they're the ones being singled out for the lady hero's personal escort detail. The red-haired leader is not having any of their backtalk. He makes it official. This is not a suggestion, it's a direct recommendation from the lady hero herself. He brings up their monster-slaying performance and specifically Blake's absolute clinic against Lord Gunther. It's a done deal, and the order is simple: suit up and get to work. Walking up to the lady hero's door feels like walking to the gallows. The guys are visibly shaking. One of them looks like he's about to lose his lunch right there in the hallway. They hesitate, they pace, but eventually they realize they're out of options. Time to knock and face the music. The door opens and boom, there's the lady hero and Lady Edda. The trainees are basically deer in headlights, completely starstruck. The lady hero is actually nice about it, thanking them for the monster cleanup, and it does not take long for the group to notice the vibe between her and Blake is way more old friends than VIP and bodyguard. They're finally seated, and the ladies are doing their best to keep things casual, but the room is thick with tension. Off to the side, the professional guards are watching like hawks, clearly thinking these trainees are way out of their league. You can practically hear them judging every move the recruits make. The trainees are trying to keep their cool, but then a guard decides to be that guy. He cuts in with the classic elitist routine, basically telling everyone that these kids do not have the aura of a real warrior and should be swapped out for some veteran magicians. Because seniority is definitely the same thing as competence. For a second, the trainees actually buy into the doubt. They look crushed, feeling like total dead weight. But then something clicks. They shake off the insecurity, stand their ground, and decide they are not going to let some grumpy guard talk them out of their shot. They're staying, and they're going to prove they belong here. That blonde knight doesn't even bother with a spell. He just strolls through their best attacks like he's walking through a light drizzle, leaving the trio face down in the dirt before they can even blink. The bruised magicians are reeling, but the knight is not done rubbing it in. He drops the name of a legendary sword saint as his mentor, basically telling them they're way too green to handle real escort duty. A silver-haired man steps up to bridge the gap, locking in a 3-week deadline for a re-evaluation. With his encouragement, the fire is back in their eyes. They're actually going to put in the work. Welcome to Mecha Forest, where the welcome wagon is a pack of lizard monsters. The trainees immediately lose their minds and bolt, but the silver-haired man isn't having it. He's forcing them to stand and fight. It's a total mess out there. The silver-haired man throws up a barrier to keep them from becoming lizard snacks, but he's playing hard to get. He refuses to carry them, forcing them to find a way to win solo. Huddled up and sweating, they finally stop panicking and start thinking. They're ditching the self-doubt and looking at their own kits, realizing they've got the tools, they just need to use them right. They start buffing their physical stats with magic, and suddenly the tide turns. One of them dances around a scythe strike and blasts the monster back with a clean, high-octane fire spell. These kids are finally clicking. They're layering spells and timing their strikes like a well-oiled machine, turning that overgrown lizard into a punching bag. It's not just mindless flailing anymore, they're actually fighting back. Then the montage kicks in. Days blur into a sweaty, magical grind. It's all about endurance, footwork, and forcing their mana to actually cooperate. They're getting shredded, but they're also getting dangerous. 3 days out from the ceremony, and here comes the reality check. A knight stands in their way, looking at them like they're a bad joke. He's not buying the hype, and he's definitely not impressed by their newfound confidence. The students throw everything they've got at him in a massive, coordinated barrage. But this guy, he's barely breaking a sweat. He deflects their magic like he's swatting flies, though he does acknowledge their physical stats have actually climbed a notch. The knight's still acting like a brick wall, unimpressed by the effort. The students are gassed, lungs burning, but there's no room for a pity party. They tighten their resolve. One last all-or-nothing push is the only way forward. They pool every drop of mana they have left into a single massive blast. The air cracks. The knight's smug look vanishes the second he realizes this isn't a bluff. He's forced to actually scramble to deflect the sheer power of their combined assault. The smoke clears and they're spent, convinced they've blown it, but then the silence breaks. Their instructor steps in with a nod of approval, and the knight finally gives them the pass. They actually did it. The shock on their faces is priceless. The knight admits their growth over these 3 weeks was no joke. As the dust settles, it's clear the bond between these trainees and Blake is rock solid. They went from panicked rookies to a genuine threat. The Demon King subjugation ceremony is in full swing, with the heroes' party paraded before a massive, cheering crowd. But tucked away in the shadows, a hooded figure watches with a gaze that could melt steel. Blake and his crew are not here for the parade. They're on high alert, scanning the perimeter like hawks. They know the stakes. One slip up in this crowd and the whole event turns into a bloodbath. A knight cuts through the noise with a grim reality check. The hero is a walking target. Assassination and kidnapping attempts have become the new normal, so they need to be ready for absolutely anything. That hooded creep, Gunther, is still lurking. He's staring at the procession with pure unadulterated venom, spitting insults at some unseen target. This guy is not just watching, he's waiting for the perfect moment to snap. Guards clock the suspicious behavior immediately. They swarm Gunther, barking orders to stand down, but you can tell by the way he's coiled that this isn't ending with a polite conversation. Forget the talk, Gunther just erupted. He unleashes a massive wave of fire, turning the orderly street into a chaotic scramble as the crowd flees for their lives. Before the flames can do real damage, a mage from the hero's party steps up. With a flick of their wrist, a surge of water douses the fire, shielding a nearby knight from the heat. Blake doesn't hesitate. He and the team crash into Gunther, slamming him into the pavement. Even pinned down, the guy is still screaming curses, clearly unhinged and refusing to go quietly. It turns out Gunther's got a toxic obsession with Alice. He's howling that he'll burn the world down if he can't have her, but a barrier mage shuts that fantasy down cold with a shimmering wall of protection. Gunther locks eyes with the mage, his face twisting in recognition and pure annoyance. The party does not blink, keeping their weapons drawn and their focus razor sharp. Alice steps up, genuinely confused by this guy's unhinged claims. Gunther keeps ranting about their lost love, demanding she come back to him, but the guards finally drag him away in chains. Good riddance. The mage sums it up perfectly. The guy is just pathetic. Alice, meanwhile, is completely flustered, frantically denying ever dating anyone. She's been way too busy saving the world for that kind of nonsense. The carriage rolls through the streets with the crowd cheering like they've never seen a hero before. It's a nice change of pace from the usual chaos, and Alice is clearly breathing a sigh of relief. Having Blake on escort duty is a massive weight off her shoulders. Blake isn't taking any chances, though. He's already got a barrier locked in place. The group starts hashing out their reputation. Apparently, the high society types still whisper about them being dropouts. Blake does not even flinch, shutting that noise down with a cold reminder that their track record speaks for itself. They finally pull up to the grand ceremony, and one of their own decides this is the perfect time to lose their cool. The sheer level of public excitement is, let's call it enthusiastic. It's mortifying honestly, but hey, at least the invite is legit. Stepping inside, the vibe shifts real fast. They're effectively the center of attention with every eye in the room glued to them. It's that classic outsider at the elite party feeling, but they're actually vibing with the atmosphere regardless of the stares. Alice and her companion make an entrance in full formal gear, and suddenly the room goes quiet. They look sharp. Honestly, it's a total glow-up. They trade a few compliments, looking like they actually belong in this high society circus for once. Now the praise is rolling in for Blake. It's a weird spot for them, being showered with compliments like they're the stars of the show. They try to play it modest, acting like it's no big deal, but the room clearly disagrees. The group circles a table, eyeing the spread while the gossip mill goes into overdrive. People are whispering, trying to piece together their connection to Lancelot and wondering why they're the ones playing hero's escort. The snooty glares from the other guests are getting old, and Blake is visibly feeling the itch to be somewhere else. The mood dips as they start checking the room, realizing some of their party members are still Mia. The music kicks in and Alice decides to break the tension by pulling Blake onto the floor. He's clearly got 2 left feet, but they don't care. They start moving to the beat, leaving the judgmental crowd to watch them stumble through a dance. While the maid's busy giving everyone the side eye, the rest of the crew is actually enjoying the buffet. Then, a silver-haired guy swoops in, asks for a dance, and suddenly the ballroom floor is their personal stage. Watching from the sidelines, our red-haired friend starts getting all introspective. He's realizing just how much Blake has completely rewired his worldview, and honestly, the lady in white agrees Blake's influence is basically contagious at this point. Talk turns to Lord Gunther and let's just say nobody shedding a tear for him. He's officially the poster boy for pathetic, sitting in a cell waiting for the axe to drop. It's a classic case of play stupid games, get a date with the executioner. A few days later, the hero's party is packing up. They've got a PR tour to manage, gotta show off that Demon King victory and flex the kingdom's muscles abroad. The silver-haired guy gets the stay home and babysit assignment. Rough gig. Before the wheels start turning, there's a quick, quiet moment of do not be a stranger between the silver-haired guy and the maid. A head pat, a wave, and then they're off, leaving the capital in the dust. Watching the carriage roll out feels like a milestone, first time the big shots have left the capital since the war. But back in the dungeon, that prisoner is wearing a smile that definitely does not mean anything good. A week of silence. The prisoner is still rotting away, staring into the void like he's waiting for the paint to dry. It's a slow burn, but the vibe is getting real heavy. Fast forward a few weeks and the students are absolutely gassed after a magic workout. They're busy complaining about the lack of real action, completely unaware that the peace and quiet is about to hit a brick wall. Suddenly, the silver-haired guy and his orange-haired buddy freeze up. Whatever just hit them, it was not on the schedule. The orange-haired kid spots the tension, asking if Blake's holding a grudge, but Blake is not worried about petty feelings, he senses something toxic coming their way. Before anyone can process it, the guards start screaming about a massive wave of miasma. The mood shifts from bored to we're in trouble in a heartbeat. It's not just a rumor, the horizon is literally choking. That dark, suffocating miasma is rolling toward the city like a tide of death. Civilians are not waiting for an invitation to leave, it's pure, unadulterated panic as everyone scrambles to get out of the blast zone. Panic hits a fever pitch, a mother shielding her kid while the shadows loom, but Blake is not just standing there. He snaps into action, weaving a massive, shimmering barrier that slams down over the capital. It's a total shutdown, the miasma hits that wall and just evaporates like it never existed. The sky clears and the silence that follows is heavy. Blake just saved the entire city, but he is not celebrating. He drops the bomb, he can hold this shield for a few months, but that's it. He's got no time for a permanent fix, and honestly, that's a terrifying deadline. Just when you think the worst is over, the city starts blowing up. Hooded figures are everywhere, turning the streets into a war zone. It's a full-blown rebellion. Blake does not miss a beat, barking orders to keep the barrier up while his squads scramble to lock down the city sectors. The orange-haired guy and his crew barely have time to breathe before they're swarmed by hooded magicians. Fire is raining down, and they're forced into a frantic dance, dodging lethal blasts while trying to drag civilians out of the line of fire. It's messy, it's loud, and they are definitely outnumbered. They're weaving through the chaos, shielding civilians with everything they've got. Every time they turn a corner, another volley of spells tries to turn them into ash. They're not just surviving, they're baiting the enemy, waiting for the perfect window to snap back. The white-haired girl steps up, cranking their mana output to the max. With that boost, the orange-haired guy and his partner stop playing defense. They launch a dual spell assault that hits the enemy like a freight train, finally putting those hooded punks on the back foot. A quick memory of a brutal training session flashes through the girl's mind. It's the only reason they're still standing. Now, they're backed into a corner, surrounded by hostiles, but they are not folding. They're standing back to back, ready to carve their way through this rebellion. The air turns lethal in a heartbeat. A rogue mage unleashes a purple torrent of destruction, and suddenly, a kid is right in the crosshairs of a massive fire blast. Our mage does not even blink, diving into the inferno to snap a protective barrier into place just as the world explodes around them. Dust and soot choke the air, but the blue glow holds firm. Inside the bubble, the world is silent, the mage breathless but unyielding as she stares down the smoke, shielding the child from the carnage outside. Nearby, two observers watch the ripple effect. They track the signature of the magic and their faces go pale. There's no mistaking that level of precision. Every single civilian in the sector is encased in a custom-built shield. It's Blake's signature and it's absolute. The mage snaps back to reality, slamming a counterattack into a hooded attacker before he can even blink. Her allies rush in, checking the perimeter, stunned to find their charge perfectly safe behind Blake's impossible handiwork. Across the capital, the realization spreads. These barriers are not just one-offs, they're everywhere. While the city panics, Blake is hanging back, a silent conductor orchestrating a massive defensive symphony from a distance, keeping everyone breathing. It's a numbers game and the rebels are winning it, or so they think. Our mages weigh the odds, realizing the castle is the real prize. They're leaning hard on Blake's support, leaving the grunts to the knights while they focus on holding the line. Chaos erupts at the castle gates. The commander screams for the line to hold and the rebels charge, thinking they've got an opening. They hit the barrier and instead of breaking through, they just find themselves trapped in a cage of their own making. The look on their faces is priceless, total confusion as the walls close in. A knight steps up, sword drawn, and absolutely cleans house while the attackers are stuck like fish in a barrel. The knight bows, offering a rare moment of genuine gratitude to Lord Blake, who stands bathed in a crackling, ethereal blue aura. the calm eye of this chaotic storm. But the peace is short-lived. A massive, stone-like hand drops from the sky, threatening to crush him into a pancake. Blake does not even flinch. He counters with a burst of raw magical force, triggering an explosion that clears the air, leaving him standing there completely untouched. Enter Gunther, our favorite local nobleman, looking like he's about to pop a blood vessel. He rolls up with his little fan club, screaming that Blake is the architect of this entire rebellion and swearing he's going to end him right here. Gunther tries to puff out his chest, but those jagged scars on his face are doing all the talking. He's clearly rattled, desperately trying to maintain some shred of dignity while insisting his remaining supporters are still enough to win. It's pathetic, really. Wrapped in a tacky purple aura, Gunther goes on a full-blown pity tour. He blames Blake for his pathetic exile to the borderlands and for stealing Alice. Apparently in Gunther's twisted reality, Blake is the sole reason his life is a dumpster fire. Blake, cool as a cucumber, hits him with the ultimate reality check. He points out that Gunther's current misery is just the logical consequence of his own choices, and adds that Alice herself never even considered him a lover. Time to grow up, Gunther. That truth bomb was clearly too much. Gunther loses it, screeching at his lackeys to wipe Blake off the map. They unload a massive, blinding magical barrage, but Blake just raises a barrier, watching with tired eyes as Gunther screams for more power, proving once again he's completely lost the plot. The air turns into a war zone. Elemental blasts are screaming from every direction, turning the area into a chaotic light show aimed squarely at our guy. He isn't even flinching. Inside that shimmering barrier, he's locked in, absorbing every ounce of their magical tantrum like it's nothing more than a light breeze. The lead attacker, clearly desperate, screams for more juice. The barrage intensifies, turning the pressure up to 11 as they try to crush him under pure magical weight. They're stunned he's still standing, but they do not get a second to process it. He vaults into the air, and in one clean motion, triggers a massive explosion that clears the field. The lead attacker tries to talk trash, claiming he's cornered, but he's talking to the wrong guy. A glowing blue construct rips through the air, turning the tables with a vicious counter-strike. Watching him mock the barrier technique is hilarious. The guy's smug confidence is rapidly curdling into pure, unfiltered frustration as his plan falls apart. Blake drops a calm, infuriating line about how everyone's efforts helped him get this strong. The lead attacker loses it, practically foaming at the mouth and calling him a hypocrite. A quick step to the side and the attackers are airborne. He hits them with a technique that sends the whole squad flying like ragdolls. While the lead attacker stares in absolute shock, Blake breaks it down. His barrier is not just a shield. It's a multi-tool for offense, defense, and healing. It's basically a cheat code. The lead attacker is losing his mind, screaming at the sheer versatility of the magic. Blake just shrugs, dropping a nonchalant "I just trained hard," and honestly, the look on the guy's face is priceless. More robed goons rush in, thinking they're the main characters, but our silver-haired hero just flickers that blue barrier and boom. They're folded on the floor like laundry. The hero starts poking the bear, taunting the last guy standing, but the blonde antagonist just laughs it off, pulling out a shady purple crystal. He downs it like a shot of cheap tequila, and you can practically feel the air turn toxic as that dark power surges. It's not a pretty sight. The guy's veins are popping, his ego is inflating, and he's busy monologuing about how this was all for Alice. Classic villain delusion, he actually thinks he's invincible now. The hero tries to shut him down, but the blonde guy launches a massive ball of dark energy. It hits with a deafening roar, but the hero's hexagonal shield holds firm. The shockwave alone is enough to rattle your teeth. The trash talk keeps coming. The blonde guy is busy playing Savior Complex Bingo, mocking the hero for trying to play the Guardian. He keeps raining down attacks, and while the hero is still blocking, you can see the cracks starting to show under the pressure. The blonde guy is loving the view, gloating over the hero's bloodied state. He's winding up for the finishing blow, but look at the hero, battered, bruised, and absolutely refusing to drop that guard. The verbal abuse is peaking, the guy is ready to unleash everything he's got, and then out of nowhere, a blast of energy slams into the scene. The blonde guy is totally blindsided. Reinforcements have arrived. A red-haired guy and his team step in, checking on our hero. They drop the good news, the rebels are down, and the magic core is finally getting a handle on that miasma. Seeing his spotlight stolen, the blonde guy is absolutely losing it, screaming threats at everyone. But the red-haired guy and his team are not here to talk. They lock the area down in a blue aura, ready to put this guy in his place for good. Blake and his crew are not just standing around, they're watching a masterclass. An older guy steps up, channeling this massive, swirling vortex of blue energy like it's nothing. It's pure high-level magic, and the atmosphere is shifting. Our antagonist is clearly losing his mind. He's covered in those creepy dark veins, screaming his lungs out as he hurls a massive, corrupted magical strike straight at Blake. He's putting every ounce of his remaining desperation into this one shot. Talk about an anti-climax. Blake doesn't even flinch. He just puts up a barrier and the attack hits it like a bug on a windshield. The look on the antagonist's face, priceless. Total, unadulterated shock that his ultimate move did not even leave a scratch. The guy is spiraling, screeching about how his top-tier magic should have worked, but Blake is done playing. He snaps his fingers and a hexagonal barrier slams shut around the antagonist, crushing him into silence. The pain is instant and the fight is effectively over. The antagonist is face down in the dirt, still trying to wrap his head around why a simple barrier beat him. Blake gives him a cold reality check on how barriers actually work before the guy finally loses consciousness. So much for that ego. With the threat neutralized, the tension finally breaks. Blake's companions rush over and Clara pulls him into an embrace. You can see the relief washing over them, the nightmare is over and they're all still in one piece. They turn their attention to the loot, a cursed tool the antagonist was carrying. It's clearly the source of that nasty miasma. The big question now, who was backing this guy? He was definitely just a pawn for someone much worse. The capital is safe, the miasma is clearing, and the vibe is finally shifting from panic to victory. Blake and the red-haired leader share a solid, professional handshake, a little mutual respect to cap off a job well done. Fast forward a few weeks and the king drops a bombshell. Blake is the new court barrier mage. The court officials are looking like they've seen a ghost. They clearly did not expect someone like him to land such a prestigious gig. His friends are losing it with cheers and applause, genuinely thrilled for him. Blake just stands there, soaking it in, probably wondering how a guy who just wanted to survive ended up with a title like that. Not a bad promotion, all things considered. Blake steps onto the balcony, greeted by a deafening roar from the masses. His companion nudges him, practically begging him to wave to the crowd. After all, he's the guy who dragged the capital back from the brink, and the people are more than ready to treat him like a living legend. Back in the quiet, gilded luxury of his new quarters, the adrenaline finally hits a wall. Blake stares at the ceiling, letting the reality of his title sink in. He used to think barrier magic was a dead-end gimmick for cowards, but looking at the path behind him, he's starting to realize he might have actually been holding a winning hand all along. It's a bitter pill, though, the way the world treats barrier mages like bottom-tier support staff. Blake is not having it. He's done being a footnote in someone else's story. If the system will not respect the craft, he'll build a new one, hunting down every potential May he can find to turn this forgotten art into a force that can actually change the world. But just as he's finding his footing, the mood shifts hard. Somewhere in the shadows, a figure collapses, writhing in agony. A jagged, glowing curse mark burns across their chest, a dark reminder that while the capital celebrates, there's a rot still spreading, and this victim is screaming for the one man who might be able to save them.